Hi, I'm Joe Salzone, and I'm here with the Sheriff of Cayuga County, Brian Schenck. Sheriff, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Joe.
This is the first time in 2 years that we've sat down for this kind of conversation. So first of all, you're halfway through your first term. How are things going?
It's crazy. No, it's going good. But as we were just talking about before we went on camera, it's been an interesting year, a lot different than my first year last year, but I still love the job that I do, and we're making the most of it.
We're filming this toward the end of 2020. The coronavirus pandemic is still very much part of our daily lives. How has it changed your job as sheriff and how this sheriff's office is run?
It's changed my job a great deal, and that of all of the people that work at the sheriff's office. But certainly, just like everybody else in our community, we're facing many challenges trying to make sure that we're following safety precautions and doing the right thing to, protect our health. All of our members are taking, the initiative to make sure that they're wearing face coverings and trying to make sure that they limit their contact with people. And when you think about the different divisions within our sheriff's office, that can be a difficult thing to do because our road patrol deputies, they're out in the community answering calls, and they can't always limit their interaction with people. They have to sometimes get very close to people, and so that's been challenging for them. Within our facility, within the jail, we certainly need to take care of our inmates and have contact with them, so it's hard for our staff to limit contact with them, but we're taking all the precautions within the jail that we can to protect our inmates, to protect our staff. We're wearing face coverings throughout the facility. We've given face coverings to all of the inmates, so they have them. We're encouraging hand washing and safety precautions to make sure that they're done on a routine basis. And it's been challenging. We've had to set up an area in the jail to be a potential COVID isolation pod. Knock on wood, we haven't had any cases within our facility, but should the need arise, if we have any inmates that were to test positive, we would place them in this COVID pod and isolate them from the rest of our facility. And we're currently using that now to house inmates when they come into our facility initially for 14 days. So if we have somebody who is sentenced to jail or comes into the jail on a pending charge, we actually put them in our COVID isolation pod for 14 days. So those are just a few of the changes that we've seen here, but it's been challenging, but our staff is doing an incredible job working through this and keeping the people that we serve safe as well as themselves.
There was, Sheriff, about a 3-month stretch where courts were shut down. How did that affect your operations as sheriff and the operations of the county jail?
That was challenging and still remains somewhat challenging, but we saw a slowdown in the progress in a number of criminal cases. So inmates were here at our facility longer than they might have normally been had the courts been up and running. We did start to do some court appearances virtually from our facility here without taking the inmates to the particular courts. That worked out great. It was great in that we didn't have to transport inmates out of our facility. We could do those court appearances via video, basically a Skype conference here from our facility, so that worked out great. Technology has been really important during all of this, and it was important to try to give access to our people here that needed to have access to the court and for the judges to have access to them.
From your point of view, what's been the biggest challenge overall in operating the sheriff's office?
I think overall it's just been a different one challenge after another. So I don't know that one really jumps out at me, but I can tell you initially a major challenge was making sure that we had the right and enough personal protective equipment. That was one of the initial challenges that we worked through. Other challenges have involved some of the things that I just talked about. We're still prepared and hopefully we don't need to utilize those, but we're prepared in case we do. That's been challenging. It's been challenging to, try to provide public safety services in our community at the same time we're asking our people to limit contact with others. So, for example, provide traffic enforcement. It's hard to provide traffic enforcement when you're asking your people to limit contact with with others. But, we still need to do those things in the interest of public safety. So there's been many challenges that we faced and continue to face, but we're doing okay, and we're getting through them.
Have you been able to find or figure out a middle ground between following all of those regulations and guidelines that the CDC has provided, that the county itself has provided, and making sure that the deputies are able to do their jobs?
We have been. It's been a challenge. Early on in the pandemic, we actually initially for the first month to 2 months asked our patrol deputies to really have no contact with others at all unless they were called to a major incident or a call for service where we had to respond. As we got into the summer, we started being a little bit more proactive with some of our enforcement efforts. But that's been something that's been tricky, that's been challenging. We're trying to find that middle ground. I think we're doing the best we can, but we're monitoring our local infection rates, and right now we're seeing those increase. So, we're routinely looking at our operation and determining, do we need to make some adjustments? Do we need to go back and maybe be a little bit less proactive to try to limit our contact and exposure to others out in the community? That's something we may have to do as we continue to see the number of cases grow here locally in Cayuga County.
Is this the most you've ever had to have contact with the health department?
It is. We've worked very closely with the health department. Kathleen Cuddy and her staff, they're doing a tremendous job, but they touch so many aspects of what we do right now with this pandemic. I actually don't know how they do everything that they do with the staff that they have, but we are working closely with them. We've had a couple of concerns here that we've had to work with them through. We did have a COVID positive case here with one of our staff members early on. They were great working with us to help us through that. But we've worked very closely with the health department and continue to.
Is there regular testing in this department?
We do not have regular testing here. We encourage our members to take advantage of any of the testing clinics that are out there, not just in our county, but outside our county if they would like to do that. We certainly encourage our members, if they're not feeling well or they're ill, to consult with their healthcare providers and get tested. We've had a number of cases where that's occurred, but again, knock on wood, we've only had the one situation so far that's touched us personally here at the sheriff's office.
Has the relationship, because of COVID-19, has your relationship and the sheriff's office relationship with the county changed at all?
My relationship with the county legislature, I wouldn't say has changed at all. We're certainly working on different things to deal with COVID and address that in our community, but we have a very good working relationship, the legislature and I, and that's important to me, and I think that it's important to them, but I can't really say that our working relationship has changed during the course of this.
The last time you and I talked, Sheriff, 2 years ago, the big topic of conversation was the opioid epidemic. Has that disappeared because of COVID-19, or is it still something that's going on but has taken maybe a little backseat to COVID?
We are still seeing issues related to the opiate problem that we have in our community, but interestingly enough, when the pandemic first started back in March into April and May, we had a number of overdose deaths that occurred that appeared to be opiate related in our community here in Cayuga County. I was very concerned at the time that was directly related to the lockdown. I believe that people that were struggling with opiate addiction were having trouble and that they weren't able to get the resources they need to help them to attend. You think of Narcotics Anonymous meetings. For those that know anything about opiate addiction, you can know just how important they are to somebody that's in recovery or trying to get to a path of recovery. They weren't occurring as frequently. So I was very concerned that some of those things due to the lockdown had a direct effect on people struggling, and that's why we saw those overdoses. But as the years gone on, we have been working locally with the Healing Communities Study, and we've been working on initiatives to get more Narcan out in our community and to make more help available through different resources that we have here. And we've started to see, knock on wood, we've started to see that number go down. We haven't seen the number of overdoses in the last few months that we were seeing in the beginning of the year. We're still seeing opiate use as a problem, but I don't think it's as big a problem as we had in the first part of 2020. So I have seen a shift throughout the course of this year during the pandemic in a very positive way, and I hope that trend continues.
Anxiety, depression, job loss, isolation. Why do you think those numbers have actually gone down when every conventional wisdom would suggest that those numbers should actually have gone up?
I think in our community here, I think it's a testament to the hard work that's being done by a number of organizations and people that are working on getting the resources out there to the people that need that. When it comes to opiate addiction, there's a lot of available help out there. There's a lot of available Narcan out there for people, end users to get and to use. I think that mental health is a huge problem this year, and I think that is something that continues to be a problem because of COVID. But when it comes to actual opiate addiction, I think we're seeing a shift away from the opiates towards sometimes other drugs, or in many cases, people are getting the help that they need, and we're seeing a positive impact. But the healing community study, it's something that a number of agencies and people within our community are partnering on to look at opiate addiction, to try to reduce the number of overdoses in our community. And I think that the work that we're doing, I think that is actually working, and I'm proud of the work that's being done out there.
A couple of years ago, Sheriff, I asked you if you saw light at the end of the tunnel with this opioid epidemic. Do you still see that?
I do. I think that we are making a difference, but I think this is still a problem that's going to be here for a while. To what degree, I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be as big a problem as it was 2 years ago, or I think things look a lot more positive now than they did then. So I think if we continue to do the work that we're doing, I think we're going to continue to see the numbers go down as far as people that are overdosing or struggling with addiction. And just like any drug trend, I think we're going to see a shift to other types of drugs. But opiates are just very deadly, evil drugs, and I'm glad to see that we're seeing people shift away from them.
Before, Sheriff, you were elected in 2018. You were a longtime member of the Sheriff's Office. Is there anything about the last 2 years that you were prepared for before a global pandemic, before the whole subject of police reform, which we'll talk about, before everything that happened in 2020? Is there anything that you've kind of had to learn on the fly?
This year, I think we're all learning a lot on the fly with the COVID pandemic. But, Joe, I think having the 23 plus years of experience I've had has really helped me prepare for the challenges we face this year. And I have to say, I can't take credit for the great things that I believe are being done here at the Sheriff's Office. It's my administrative team. It's the staff that's here at the Sheriff's Office. They really pick it up when there's a need, and when we face challenges, they rise to the occasion, and they're certainly, in my opinion, doing it this year. And I'm proud of the work that they do. And I think, many of the people on my administrative team have a number of years here at our Sheriff's Office, so that's helped them do their job and meet the challenges that they face every day. So, yeah, it's been very challenging, and we're learning as we go sometimes, but it's the experience that really matters that helps you meet these challenges.
As if the pandemic wasn't enough to occupy your time, earlier in the year, Governor Cuomo issued an executive order following the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, saying that any municipality in New York State that has a police department must submit by April 2021 a plan on police reform or reimagining public safety, whatever term we want to use. How's that going?
It's going well. So yes, that executive order 203 was issued in June of this year, and it's the Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative that Governor Cuomo mandated. So far, it's going well. We've partnered in Cayuga County with the City of Auburn. So the police department, our sheriff's office, and our municipalities are partnering together to connect with stakeholders in our community to do an assessment of our police agencies. And we will soon be reaching out to the public in addition to surveys, which we already have out there. Both of our agencies have surveys out there that we're hoping the public will complete. But we're going to additionally reach out via Zoom or a similar platform to have some public hearings and ask the public to give us some feedback about what kind of police agencies they want to see in our community. So I believe that the City of Auburn Police Department and our Sheriff's Office, I think we were a little bit ahead of the curve when this mandate was issued. We had already been working with many social justice organizations in our communities to, learn what we might be able to do better when it comes to those racial issues. And we've always, both of our agencies have tried to be transparent and open to feedback. That's not something new to us. So this is a process that wasn't as challenging for us to begin as it might have been for other police agencies, but it's going well. We've already had some stakeholder meetings with different stakeholders in our communities. We've gotten some feedback, and we continue to try to address some of these issues as we work towards putting together a plan, as you said, prior to April of 2021.
A lot of people have opinions on police reform. People who say there shouldn't be any kind of law enforcement, people who are suggesting simple changes, and people say it's fine the way it is. Where's the real answer?
I think that our law enforcement agencies can always improve. I think that we can always do better. And I think it's important that we learn from our community, what can we do better to serve you? I don't always agree with the ideas that sometimes are presented as a broad solution to problems that aren't always there. And I'll give you an example of that. When you hear some people talk about police reform and defunding the police, they might say that, maybe we don't always want police officers responding to incidents of mental health. There are certain cases where that might be true, where maybe an officer's response to a call for service in a situation driven by a mental health challenge could actually make the situation worse. Could actually, the police officer being introduced into that situation could elevate and heighten the problem. But I don't think that we can just say in every community that we want to always send more social workers or therapists to calls of service like that, because as I've seen in many cases that we get sent to, we need a police officer there triaging that situation, making sure that scene is safe. And then we are working in our community closely with Cayuga County Mental Health and other mental health providers to introduce those therapists and those counselors and those people that can help with those situations along with our officers. So we've been partnering with them for some time, but to just say that we just, should limit the number of times we send an officer to those types of calls, I think that puts people at risk. It puts the person in crisis at risk. I think it could potentially put social workers and therapists at risk. We need to be very careful how we look at changing our response to those things. And I think we can do better, but we can't just, paint those things with a broad brush and say we just need to quit sending police to those incidents, because I think that's when people are going to get hurt. We need to be careful how we do that.
Over the summer, Sheriff, there were protests, riots, in some cases around the country, violence. The violence didn't happen here. There were protests and demonstrations. Why do you think peace was able to prevail here where in other places it didn't?
I think for a number of reasons. I think the work that our police agencies, the Auburn Police Department, our Sheriff's Office, I think the work that we've done with our social justice organizations played a part in that. I can say that the one protest that we did have here in the city of Auburn, Chief Sean Butler with the Auburn Police Department and I met with the organizers just an hour or two prior to the protest. And we explained to them that we were there to support them, to help them have a voice. We wanted to make sure that things were done peacefully, but we wanted them to know we were there to support their right to protest and to have their voices heard. And I think that was kind of a surprise to the organizers. But we went to that protest, Chief Butler and I, and we introduced ourselves to a number of people there and explained our positions, because it's important to us. We want to hear what the concerns are and protect, people's right to free speech. And we were right there with them in the middle of that protest, and we both marched with them, along with Chief Butler had a number of his staff there. So we marched with them. And, I think that helped show people that we want to hear what your concerns are. We want to address your concerns. And, there's no need to have any violence. That's not going to solve anything. But I think we've done a good job of getting the message out there that we're here to support you. We want to do what we can to support you. There's, we don't need violence in our community, and that's not going to solve anything. And I'm hoping that the work that we've done continues to keep those kind of things from happening. But I think it worked over the summer during the protests that we saw here locally.
What's your takeaway from what you've seen in 2020, whether it's the pandemic or public safety reform? What's your big takeaway from this historic year?
My big takeaway is that you never know what you're going to get into. I don't know what next year is going to look like. I would love to say, can't get any worse, but I'm afraid if I say that, it will. But no, my biggest takeaway is, you just never know what's going to happen. You got to be prepared for anything. And wow, what a challenging year 2020 has been.
What do you think will be the big issue or the big topic for the sheriff's office, the big topic of focus in 2021?
Well, I think COVID's going to be with us for a while, even though we're likely seeing a vaccine come, and we're still going to be facing many challenges that come with that. I think a challenge is going to be the budget with 2020 and a lot of the challenges we faced due to COVID and some other things that we addressed this year. I think we're going to have some challenging budget times in the years ahead, not just next year, but beyond. So, when you're trying to provide the best public safety services you can, and cut your budget, sometimes that doesn't always go hand in hand. So we're going to have to be, we're going to have to be smart about how we deliver our services and be efficient. And that's going to be a challenging thing as we move forward. And looking at the governor's, executive order and the work we're doing to put this plan together, I don't think that ends in April of 2021. I think we're going to have to continue to have dialogue with people in our community. We're going to have to continue working to resolve challenges and problems that we might have, dealing with issues of racism and other things within our community and beyond. So I see those challenges continuing too. But I feel like we've established a good foundation to really start working on some of those challenging issues and moving into 2021, creating some solutions.
Have you been able to relax very much?
It's been a little difficult this year. I can tell you that it's tough finding that balance. Work is always on your mind. My family's been awesome as far as supporting the work that I do, but every once in a while, I can realize that I've got to put myself in check and, hey, wait a minute, got to leave work at work for a little bit. But I love spending time with my family. My wife's been very supportive. She's great. It's tough sometimes. I did take some time off the last few days due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but that's tough because you've got a 24/7 operation. Our people are working at the sheriff's office on every holiday, and it's hard to be home on a holiday knowing your people are out there putting their lives on the line and not trying to be a part of that while they're doing that. So finding time to relax can be tough, but I love the job that I do.
Well, thanks a lot for allowing us in this wonderful conference room at the at the sheriff's office and for talking with us.
It's always a pleasure, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's Cayuga County Sheriff Brian Schenck. For ARMA, I'm Joe Salzone. We'll see you next time.